welcome Amber to our meeting. I think all of you know her, so she doesn't need a long introduction, but as you know, Amber leads our Hilton Head Island Sea Turtle Patrol, among other activities. And we're very delighted to have her with us again to talk about the results of this year's Sea Turtle Count. So Amber, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, it's been a year since I spoke to you guys last. I think the last presentation was the same thing, but for 2019. And that was a really exciting year. That was a record year, and so many things happened. We had 4 different species of hatchlings leaving the beach. We had 2-headed turtles and all sorts of things. This year was pretty normal, but I will give you a little rundown on how that went. This first slide is just the best picture to describe 2020 just overall. So if you look at it, it looks like there's a nest, there's the sand fencing, looks all good. But if you know what the difference is between a hatchling track and a crab track, you can see that the crabs are after the hatchlings there. The crab tracks are those little pointy ones at the bottom within that triangle. And then the hatchling tracks, the rest of them are all going to the dune. So this is something that happened quite a bit this year. We're not really happy about that at all. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what I'm trying to do to fix that with the town. But perfect for 2020. Just everybody goes the wrong way, and that's just the way it's going to be. Okay. Let's see if I can get my slide to change. Okay, so our mission, you probably know this, you can see it on our website, you can read it for yourself. Not only is it just, it's not just monitoring and marking off nests and moving eggs and that sort of thing, but we really do almost as much with public education and trying to get involved with the town ordinances and getting the word out to the visitors about how to be good beach stewards as it refers to the turtles. And overall, we have some issues on the beach with tourists, especially this year. Of course, this is what we look for May through October. We're looking for hatching starting in July, and of course the first nest will show up May, the prior. We look for the tracks. We usually don't see the turtle, but you do in this picture. That was a rare occurrence. We usually see the body pit with the red circle there. Just from experience, I know the eggs are there. So it takes some learning to figure out where in that body pit you're going to find those eggs. We move a lot of them. This year we moved over 62%, so way over half. There were 108 that we didn't move and 183 that we did move. And we do that very carefully within a 12-hour period. After that period, the embryo attaches to the inside of the egg. So if it's moved at all, it will detach and stop growing. So we are very careful with that and make sure that that's why we go every day, so that if we have to move a nest, we can do that safely. And I also want you to notice the picture on the far right. This happened a lot this year. We missed a lot of emergences because we can't document it as an emergence if there are no hatchling tracks. So often we saw these open holes, but no evidence of anything leaving it. But if you look at that triangle where people haven't walked inside of it, it looks like rain spatter. So wind and rain can erase the evidence of those hatchlings coming out. So a lot of them that we thought maybe didn't hatch, when we inventoried them after 70 to 75 days, we found that they had. We had just missed it. So that was a good little surprise. This is the graph that I add on to every year. It's up and down, especially in the last 7 years or so. We used to be able to kind of predict it, and it was on the rise. And then we have these big drops, and a lot of that is weather related. We've had some snow. That was in the 2018 episode, which is why we had only 179 nests that year. This cold temperature is going to kill the food source, and sea turtles have to be very robust to nest. The females eat a lot in between nesting cycles, so every 2 years they have a 2-year break, so every 3rd year they nest. And during those 2 years, they really beef up so that they can go a full nesting season, possibly without eating, laying 4 to 6 nests in a season, with 120 eggs in each. So there's a lot of depleted physical energy that goes into that. So this year we ended up with 291. That's a little below average. You can kind of see our average is around 320, 324, 320, 339, 325 twice. And then that's kind of our average. And I would like to see at least that each year, but we didn't see that this year. And so far the DNA is not quite complete, but it's mostly there. Looks like we had 87 individual females that nested on our beach. So out of every nest, we take the DNA off of the outside of the eggshell, one eggshell. We send that to University of Georgia, the eggshell. They find who it is. They've got a DNA catalog of every sea turtle that's nested in South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina since 2010. So we track them since 2010, knowing what their nesting cycles are, where they've nested. Very interesting study. As far as new females that only with one documented nest, there were 5 newbies this year. So as long as we get some recruitment, that's good. So we are having females that are surviving at least 25 to 30 years to be sexually mature and come to the beach to nest. This is what our end of the season report looks like when we send it off to DNR. There's a lot of information there, but what I'd like you to notice are the numbers highlighted in the center there. So our hatch success was 77%. That means what hatched under the sand, which is way better than we are used to. As far as the turtles that got out, that's the emergent success. It was 72.4. So that's higher than we usually get as well. Nest success is kind of irrelevant. Beach success is false crawls versus actual nests. So that's about right. It's usually around 50%. That's a lot of false crawling. In Hilton Head, you're going to have that a lot because you have people on the beach all night long. And I was there to see it this year. There was a lot of activity on the beach, way more than I thought. So last year I introduced this study that we're doing. It's a 3-year study. It was in its 2nd year this year. Last year we put down 5 hobo loggers. 3 of them came back with data. This year we put 8 down and 5 came back with data. So there's, they don't do well in the rain. I think I'll manufacture some sort of rain jacket for them next year because I think that was the main culprit, was the rain. When they get flooded, they don't do well. So that wire that you see at the end of it, there is a temperature gauge, and we insert that into the middle of the nest and then put the eggs on top of it, the other half of the eggs, and that sits in there for the full incubation period. So out of those 3 from last year, and these are finally analyzed data from last year, the 3 that we got, we looked at for averages overall, and that's what I reported to you last year. So on average for the entire incubation, the south end of the island where it has that very fine sand that was renourished sand from the Barrett Shoals borrow pit. And then on the north end, there's the Bay Point borrow pit that has the coarse shelly sand. Trying to compare the two, which one's holding more heat, how long does it hold? But overall for the whole incubation, it looked like the south end had the highest incubation. What we found out that during the critical period that I'm interested in, this is the period, the 2nd third of incubation, where the sex is determined in the sea turtle hatchling. So I don't know if y'all remember me saying last year, 84.2 degrees is the pivotal temperature. So in the 2nd third of incubation, if a sea turtle egg incubates above 84.2 degrees, it becomes female. And if it incubates in that period of time below 84.2 degrees, it becomes male. So when we took that specific data out of the data as a whole, we got, and I want you to look at the averages, we see that the south end is actually less hot, 86.15, than the north end. And the natural beach, which is this less than a mile section of Hilton Head Beach that has never received renourished sand, it's a natural section of beach, is the hottest. So if you know that 84.2 degrees is the pivotal temperature, and you look at the 3 bars on the average column, what's that tell you? it looks like all females. And we know Florida is producing all females right now. And this is going to be great when you start counting nests, and there are more and more and more nests every year, but none of them hatch because you have to have a male to fertilize them. And if we aren't producing any males, this might be a problem for us in the future with climate change. So we're looking just on Hilton Head to see where the best areas are for incubation. It's not something that we're going to look to manipulate any sort of temperatures or anything. It's just knowing what sections of beach incubate best. And we know that the nests in that natural part actually don't do as well as the renourished sand parts. So that's pretty interesting. So the state of South Carolina, this is their page or their square up here where it has the loggerheads. There were 5,551 loggerhead nests in South Carolina this year. Hatch success and emergent success there. So emergent success is always a little bit less, 41% overall for the state. The green sea turtles, only 3 in the state this year. We had 2 last year, but they only the 3 overall. 1 leatherback in the whole state. We haven't had a leatherback nest here since 2015. So a little bit curious about what's going on with the leatherbacks. Kemp's Ridley, there was another one in North Myrtle Beach this year. We had the 4th one ever that was recorded in South Carolina, 4th Ridley to nest in South Carolina this year, the 5th Ridley to nest. And that's the most endangered sea turtle out of the 7 species. So it's interesting that they're starting to show up randomly, and they were kind of wondering if it was a hybrid situation, but it's not a hybrid situation. At least on our Ridley, it wasn't. So mystery. You can never say they always. There's always going to be someone or something that shows up that just totally debunks your thought process. So this is our page, the bigger half, and it's telling you all of these statistics for the year. There were 291 nests, 108 left alone, relocated 183, inventoried, lost only 1 with the king high tides that we had, and the false crawls 152. But when you put it into the whole range of South Carolina, the amount of nests that we have on Hilton Head is only 4.25%. I thought it was more than that personally, because we have the largest beach, 14 miles. Kiowa is next with 10 miles, but we don't, mostly because on 14 miles of beach, we should have more. And the reason we don't have more nesting is because of all the activity we have in a tourist beach. And of those 291, 6 of them were nests that we did not find. They just hatched, and we happened to notice that there was a hole with hatchling tracks. So that happens a little bit every year. This year, it seems like the weather really didn't do us any favors when we were looking for evidence of tracks. Also, because of COVID, DNR would not let us go out in pairs. So in the beginning of the season, we were alone in the vehicle. And when you're driving, looking ahead and to the side, you're bound to miss something, I think, even if you're going slow. So that was that. And then like a month in, they said you can go together, but you have to wear masks. And that was kind of miserable in the summer heat, wearing a mask and relocating turtle nests. But we had to do it. And that was how it was for the rest of the season. So I mentioned that our emergent success is so high this year compared to what we're used to. When it dropped down to 48%, that was when I proposed to DNR about the study that included the temperature gauges in the nest. But another thing that it included was moving the nest from the ends of the islands. So on the Hilton Head south end, beach marker 1 to beach marker 12, and then on the north end, beach marker 134 to like 122, we moved all of those nests away from the ends and just inside that parameter, because the nests on the ends are subject to a lot of erosion. There's water inundation. There's all sorts of things. I did some analysis and found that 80% of the nests left on the ends did less than 20% success. So that let me get the permission to move them in. And ever since we've done that, last year was the first year, it's gone up and up. So got one more year of the proposal, and if I can prove that that's probably the reason that we're having such success, then maybe we can keep it that way. It's just, you renourish an island, but it's always going to be washing away and trying to make itself how it was naturally. This was the problem that we had this year that really did not make me feel good about things. So 38 misorientations. We've had this before in 2017. And the reason we had 38 nests that went to the wrong direction in 2017 was because we had Matthew in 2016, Irma in 2017, and the dunes were completely washed away. And the dune is what blocks a lot of the light from the beachfront homes. So I can see how that would happen. It dropped down to 15, 19 in 2019. And then it rose again this year to 38, which is right up that same number, same instances. But if you look at the percentages across the bottom, it's the highest percentage we've ever had of misorientations. So I've been working on revising the lighting ordinance. It was adopted in 1990. And the reason the town put it into the municipal code is because they were required to get a permit from Fish and Wildlife, their biological opinion approved, to renourish the beach during sea turtles, on a sea turtle nesting beach. So they put it into play. It's been that long. Nothing has changed with it. Sea turtle biology has just advanced so much, and it's never been dealt with. I think there's been less than 10 tickets given in 30 years because the way it's written, you can't enforce it. It's written this way. Light illuminating the beach is a violation. That means the sand is reflecting light. If the sand is reflecting light on Hilton Head Beach, someone has a spotlight shining on the sand. This is never going to happen. Yet sea turtles will go to your porch light, which is light that is visible from the beach. And that's what all the current research says. Light visible from the beach will distract the sea turtle and it will go the wrong way. So I'm trying to get that phrase changed. And the town added interior lighting, and they added first and second floor. It was second floor originally because the dune back in the day was a little bit higher than it is now, and first floor was usually blocked. But now that those beach cottages that we saw in the 90s are all torn down and big McMansions are built on top, that has totally changed. So the topography has changed. We need interior lights because it's glass front homes are attracting the hatchlings. We're having a big problem with it unless we can change the verbiage of the lighting ordinance. We'll never get to enforce it. So this is a picture that I took because of the worst picture, the worst house. I wanted to take a picture to show somebody, but when I looked at the picture again, I saw that there were 3 levels that I'm very familiar with on the beach because I accompany the code enforcement when we do the lighting patrol ordinance patrols. And the one that's bad is going to attract a hatchling, worst, obviously, and that's all interior lights. The one on the far right, which is good, they've got the lights on inside, but the shades are drawn. It's very minimal. It's not blaring. And of course, the house on the far left where there are no lights on. And this is after 10 p.m. We don't go out there until the ordinance would be in effect. So obviously a rental home, because if you're on vacation, you're going to be up past 10, you're partying, you're having a good time. The faction that is bucking this and threatening to sue the town if they change the ordinance says that it's an infringement of their constitutional rights to be told what to do inside their home. And it's not about what you're doing inside your home. It's about what you are letting trespass outside your home. So just like a sound ordinance, you might be blaring the music inside, nobody cares. But if it's outside and it's bothering something or someone, then it's a violation. So same here, you're letting light trespass from your house into the natural environment, and this is not your front yard. This is a public area. And so there are certain responsibilities there. especially when an endangered species uses it um, to, for its existence. So that is from Blair Witherington, PhD. He brought that to everybody's attention. He's the foremost authority on beachfront lighting and sea turtle hatchlings. He's from Florida, and he just wants everybody to know that it's not a constitutional infringement. It's you're letting it trespass into the public area. So sometimes it's hard to understand that. So for the season opener this year, we actually took the worst offender on Hilton Head Beach. This is in South Forest Beach, a home that is huge. It has a shuffleboard court on the bottom, 3 stories full of bedrooms. And I contacted the rental company that manages it and asked them if they would contact the owners to see if we could replace 8 exterior fixtures, 10 understory tube fluorescent lights, and put some timers on there with a bulb change and a shield. And they, of course, were like, sure, buy us new lights. So we raised money. It was Palmetto Dunes Cares, Wahi, Palmetto Electric, and the actual property management company donated some money. And we bought these downward facing fixtures with the turtle friendly wavelength bulb, which they see red, orange, and yellow wavelengths, but they don't react to it. So the misnomer that people say, oh, well, they don't see red light, so you can just have your red light on all night long. No, they don't react. Hatchlings will not follow it. It doesn't have the lumen amount that a bright light would have, but it's enough to see what you're doing on the porch, and it only has to be 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. May through October. So the before and after picture make a big difference. And the house, every time I pass it, I'm so proud of it. And I had a nest right in front of it this year and no problems. And I asked some people, because I was on the beach during the day this year doing some beach education for the town. I said, are those lights like hindering anything? Do you feel like you don't have enough light on the porch? And they were like, no, it's totally fine. So it's not scary. We had a budget of $5,000 and the electrician didn't charge us. So it was actually less than that. And these fixtures are not metal. They're actually plastic, but they look like exactly like metal. So they're not going to pit or rust or anything like that. They're just really nice. And if the ordinance passes, downward facing shielded lights are required on the exterior. So if you have the 1980 candelabra style, that's not going to cut it. You can either turn it off or replace it with a downward facing. Way overdue. Another thing we planned for this year was our second Myrtle sculpture. You might be familiar with the first one. The first one is Myrtle the turtle. Her DNA code is CC for Coretta 003061. And she's a turtle that has been noticed by the geneticists because she doesn't skip 2 years. She only skips 1 year. She lays up to 8 nests, which is the maximum. I've never had any more than 8 nests in a season laid by one sea turtle, and she does it every other year. She has daughters nesting, so her daughters have to be at least 30 years old, which makes her at least 60 years old. And so we highlighted this turtle and we put the statue in front of the tiki hut for a year. It sat there on the beach, and we were excited to welcome Myrtle back in 2019, but she didn't show up for the first time since we've been keeping track. So we thought, well, maybe it was a hard year. I mean, it is 2020. Maybe she's just doing the whole 2-year skip like everybody else does. And no, she didn't show up again. But I'm going to tell you a story about another turtle that might explain why we're hoping. But the second Myrtle is for our Lights Out campaign. She is painted dark colors on her fins and her head. That represents the sky, the stars. The moon is on her head, and the hatchlings are walking to the moon, not the opposite direction. So that was our turtle that went out to replace Myrtle number 1. Who is at Crazy Crab right now on the north end, and she will go to the Children's Museum, the Sandbox at the Celebration Park in Coligny that's about to open. So we donated her there, and they're happy to have her. And we'll get a new one every year and hope that Myrtle returns. So in November of last year, Turtle Trackers and Sea Turtle Patrol got the town's backing to pass this ordinance that limits holes being dug and personal property left on the beach. So we were having, when we started Turtle Trackers, one of their main duties was to go out in the evenings, and these are chapters in every beachfront community. There's 7 chapters. There's over 350 volunteers in the organization as a whole. They go out on the beach in the evening, pick up trash, and they fill in holes. So these are the holes we had to deal with in the past. These are massive holes. So we told the town, you know, actually, if there's a beach goer at night walking and falls into this hole, they could break their leg. They could be in serious trouble. So the liability was announced, and once it's announced, you're responsible for it. So the ordinance says no metal shovels, no shovels bigger than 30 inches. The hole can't be deeper than a foot. It must be filled in before you leave, and you cannot leave your personal property on the beach past sunset, or it will be deemed litter and it can be removed. So yeah, we had big holes this year. We didn't have any of these like significant, not as much anyway as we had to. So it did make a difference. Those signs that they put up did announce it well enough for people to, some people, about half of them, to notice it. That was on the beach, kind of explained to people why it's important to fill your holes, especially for sea turtle hatchlings when they come out of their nest and they walk down to the ocean in the dark and they fall right in. And then they never make it because the birds eat them right out of the hole, and the crabs and everything else. And if a nesting female fell into that hole, she wouldn't be doing well either. So for the turtles, but also liability for people walking on the beach at night. And as you can see, things left on the beach before the ordinance was put into effect can affect a turtle nesting. She'll see that dark, scary, whatever it is, turn around and go back to the ocean. And this track is significant, and you'll find out why in a little bit. But I used this picture a lot when I was trying to get that ordinance passed. This is me this summer with a hole. That's usually my face when I see it, and nobody's around it. In other words, people left it. And I wasn't required to fill them in, but I felt guilty leaving them behind. And I thought, well, if I start to fill this hole in, people will feel sorry for me. And that happened a couple of times. They will help me fill it in. And this is a situation where that did happen. So I had to take a picture of these people filling in the hole to help me out. So this gives me a little hope for humanity when people start to help me fill holes and ask why, and I can give them that information. But this happened a lot, and I filled in a lot of holes. Also, this happened. Let's see. Whoops. Let's go back to that slide. Okay. Hold on. No. Okay, y'all have to tell me if you see the screen now.
We're good.
Okay. Almost there. This is a video, and I guess I'm just gonna have to manually turn it on. This was in the news, right? This is beach and tennis. This is dune fire on July the 5th. This is I've never seen this before. I've been told that's happened like maybe once or twice, but it just totally infuriated me, and it almost burnt down the boardwalk to this resort. So someone shot a firework off. I saw it go off, and then I noticed a little bit of a, twinkle in the dune, which it was windy that night, and suddenly this flame just took over the whole dune. So that is unacceptable. And another thing that the nice people this year did. It was a little bit of a different clientele than we're used to. They saw that the trash can was full, so they just put their trash all around the trash can, which I don't know. I would never do that, but they did it. And what makes it worse is that the crow eating out of the trash can there is sitting on a kitchen trash bag, which is a trash bag that's been brought down from the condos to the trash cans to get rid of their garbage. In other words, whoever rented the place didn't give them any options on what to do with their trash, maybe, and they thought it was convenient just to put it back on the beach, their kitchen trash. And for the first time ever in preparation for 4th of July, the town put these dumpsters on the beach. There's 6 of them, all up and down the beach. And that also did not go over well with the locals. That was something that I thought I would never see in my lifetime. But the trash had been so bad so far that year that we couldn't deal with it. The lifeguards and my trash run at night just couldn't keep up with the trash. So those dumpsters were in preparation. The town said they'd never do that again, mostly because it wasn't cost effective and it was hard to get them onto the beach, but also it wasn't something that the people appreciated. So another thing I noticed being on the beach this year is the tent, the canopy. The lifeguards call them a canopy, I called them a tent. But this thing was never meant to be on the beach. It wasn't something that was developed for beach use. It bends very easily. The wind can bend it. And when it does, it won't fold back up. So if you're a beach goer, even if you want to take this tent off the beach, you can't. So it's left by the trash can, like the picture you see on the right. And you guys are seeing my full screen, right? This is something that I had to cut down with bolt cutters. So you're cutting this metal. It's sharp. It always cuts you. You're in the dark, so it's going to. The lifeguards will come to the beach with bandages wrapped around their hands. And when I asked them what happened, they would always say it was the canopy. So because we had to cut them down to get them off the beach, they were dangerous for the people removing them. They can fly off because they aren't secured well to the sand. And the picture on the top right, if somebody had been sitting in those chairs when that white tent took flight, they would have been impaled by the legs of the tent. So my goal this winter is to let town council know, the dangers of this particular item, and hopefully we can ban it like Myrtle Beach did. Myrtle Beach does not allow these canopies Memorial Day to Labor Day. The numbers that you see, those are the things that I picked up in 4 months during the summer months. So 4 nights a week in those months, there were over 1,000 chairs, 262 of those tents that a lot of them I had to cut, over 1,000 towels, almost 1,000 toys. Other usually is umbrella, but there was a lot. I had no idea. That's a 12x6 trailer, by the way, 12 feet long, 6 feet wide. And I would fill it in a night. I mean, sweat. When I volunteered for this, I thought I'd be picking up a little bit here, a little bit there. I had no idea. I was sweating. It was a lot of manual labor, and all of it went in the trash. There are plenty of alternatives, and I saw them on the beach all summer. I call the one on the left the spandex tent. I don't know what they call it, but literally 4 poles with a tennis ball at the top and this fabric. If it breaks, you just wad it up and put it somewhere, or take it home with you, or put it in the trash. And the one on the right is like $250. It's a little bit more expensive, but it does the same thing. And it was fun to be sitting underneath that glowing tent. So it's not like we're keeping shade off of people, but if we can get rid of that particular item, then we'll have a lot better situation on the beach as far as trash goes, I think, and safety. Okay, so this is Stumpy. This is a different turtle. We do have her DNA, so we know when she's been here. We saw her a lot in 2017. All these pictures here were taken in 2017. And the most significant part that you should notice is that it's missing the back left flipper. And it's obviously from a shark bite because it's the perfect half moon, just, you know, very stereotype shark bite. And sharks, large sharks, are the only predator for a sea turtle. So, you know, they do have injuries from sharks quite a bit. But what that does is makes it very difficult for them to nest because they use their back flippers alternating right and left to dig their hole. So this one, you know, even the barnacles on her back give it away. The pattern of the barnacles, we've got her DNA, so we've confirmed all of this. She got lost in the dune, and she made the front page of the Island Packet in a situation where the lifeguards had to push her back into the water. She was so tired. And then the next day, I saw her and took this picture of her heading back to the water. She put one nest on Hilton Head in 2017, and it was a nest where we notated that the eggs were rolling down the beach and the hole was this deep. And, you know, so obviously she couldn't dig the hole deep enough. She skipped 2 years and she came back in 2020. But before I tell you about that story, I will tell you that she first showed up on the DNA radar in 2012. And then she was gone for 5 years. And usually at that 5-year point, we will say this turtle has to go out of the catalog. It's dead. We'll not see her again. But this one shows back up with a 4-year break, so 5 years. And it's obvious that something happened with her back flipper and she had to heal in that interim time. She wasn't robust. She couldn't nest in between. That's my theory, but it kind of makes sense. If you got bit by a shark, you need time to heal before you can nest again. Unfortunately, it's not really easy for her to do that. But on my trash run this year, which was after sunset, so I usually started around 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and I went the whole beach, so it took about 4 hours to do this, but I could see her track and I could recognize it. And it's really recognizable, this track, because it's just so different from the others. And hopefully the slide is up where you're looking at 2 orange arrows pointing at the divot in the sand that looks like cartoon cry marks coming out of the eyes. That's the best way I can describe it. Those divots in the sand are her shell wobbling back and forth. So when the edge of the shell hits the sand, which normally they wouldn't if they were walking properly, it makes that divot on the side. So she's back and forth, wobbling quite a bit. The nest body pit that you see has an open hole, and that's what we call an aborted dig. So she'll come up, she'll dig a hole. She's not satisfied with it, obviously, because it's not very deep. And she will not put her eggs down. And I have a feeling that Stumpy's probably released several eggs into the ocean because every 2 weeks they get a new clutch forming. So they have to get rid of the ones they didn't deposit for whatever reason. And we've only found evidence of her leaving eggs kind of around the beach that one time in 2017. And she only laid one other nest, and it was in Fripp. And if I could access their data, I could tell that probably it was the same situation. But usually it's just drop the eggs somewhere because there's no evidence other than those 2 nests, and we know she had more than that to give. So this track picture with the tent in it, this is what I've been using for years and never realized that it was Stumpy's track, because in the soft sand it looks different. But it's significant because this turtle keeps showing up when I'm around. So I see it, I see the false crawls, I see the aborted digs. And this year she nested, the picture's from 2017, but she nested this year twice on Hilton Head, and I was there for both. And I was her back flipper that was missing. So when she would put her flipper down to dig, she would shift over to use the flipper that wasn't there, but they're not real logical creatures. She still did the motions like it was there, but it wasn't. So I dug for that, and then she'd shift back over and use the flipper that she had. And we would do this for about 20 minutes, and she would feel around in the hole and make sure that it was acceptable for her. And I remember the first night I saw her was at marker 73B, because she pulled up right in front of that marker. And she had already tried to dig at least 3 times before I got there. But we together put that nest down, covered it back up. Turtle didn't know I was there, I guess. I was quiet enough. And the nest hatched with 70% emergent success, and they all went the wrong way. So after all of that, she still didn't have a successful nest because our lighting ordinance is not firm enough to get people to comply. In other words, there's no fine being given because the way it's written, the town can't enforce it. So we have been to public planning committee with it. Again, last year it passed public planning committee, and then COVID hit and it never made it to council. It's back in public planning committee. The next meeting, it's on the agenda on November, I think it's either the 17th or 19th for public planning committee. And they will recommend it or not to town council. And then after that, town council will brief it once, read it once, and then read it a second time in order to pass it. But all 7, you have to have the majority vote to make it happen. This is not a new ordinance. It's not a new rule. It's simply being updated. And this update is making people very nervous because they might actually have to turn their lights out. So the last nest hatched October 9th, and I was there for that too. I saw the heads poking out as I pulled my trailer down the beach, and I said, okay, this is it. The last nest, y'all can inventory it in 3 days and we're done. Because of the way this year went and the people, it might be an anomaly because it was a pandemic. Maybe people were just not, they were either really nice, like overly nice, wanted to turtle talk right there in front of their face, or they were really mean and they hurt my feelings like every 5 seconds. So this weirdness that happened on the beach, the fires, the trash, the leaving your personal property stuff. I mean, we made that ordinance just in time for the pandemic, not knowing it was coming. And maybe next year there'll be more of what we're used to, but it happened. So in science, when it happens, you don't ignore that. And I'm hoping that we can prepare for it better in the future. I did ask the ATAC committee for money to be in the Sound Waves facility, which is in Coligny. It's a facility that I have to rent in order to give a turtle talk that will hold 200 people. A free turtle talk for visitors, residents, students, everybody, especially the ones visiting, so that they can know about the ordinance, about personal property, the holes, don't disturb the nest, use the red flashlight so hatchlings don't follow you down the beach. And there's several things that people get here and they just don't know, and they make these mistakes and it has huge consequences. But I guess I was unaware that ATAC is only for marketing. The ATAC is only for marketing. So nobody's coming to Hilton Head just to see my turtle talk. So tourist enhancement, which I thought was part of it, they're enhancing their experience, is not. So it will not be recommended to town council, and I'll have to come up with that money somewhere to do that. And I do plan to do that. So either way, unless town council changes their mind, they have the final say. I will mention it to them as well, because obviously I didn't agree. I was one of 2 organizations that didn't get any funding, and they have a ton of extra money. So we'll see how that goes. It's really needed. The beach has gotten not enough attention in the last 30 years. And it seems like the turtle people are the ones that are trying to bring everything back up to speed, including trash and fire, and just a complete disregard for the natural environment. This year, the beach was what was available because it was an outdoor activity. So I understand that it probably got more traffic than normal. There were a lot of people all night long, but you know, there can be a lot of people as long as they know how to act, and most of them are just ignorant to it. And if I could get this turtle talk, maybe we could educate them. So I know you guys care about the environment too. So I hope that if you ever have the chance to support it, or if somebody mentions it, that you know a little bit more about why it's important. This year was just so different, but we got through it, and I seriously hope next year is better for everybody. Thank you so much for listening, and hope to give you an update next year as well.
Thanks so much, Amber. As usual, this was a great talk, and you know, it's terrific to have you. So we've got time for some questions, and for any one of you who wants to ask a question, please unmute yourself, and after you ask your question, just go back on mute. So I'll put it open to the group.
I have a question.